This lesson begins the tutorial in building a diamond ring. So we'll start off by opening the diamond.3dm sample file. And we have a gemstone model in here for use in this tutorial. And we're going to get started building some curves for the head, which is the section with the prongs that hold our stone. I'm going to rename the first layer as head curves and set that as current. Jump into my front view here and begin drawing a single line. We have the X and the Z axis. I want to start at 3/4 of a millimeter out. So one way of doing that is to type in the start of the line at 0.75, and you always need at least 2 positions in order to label a coordinate. So that's for X, and then comma 0, press enter, and you can see here we've started at 3/4 out. Come up past the end of this edge, or the what is called the girdle right here of the stone, and go ahead and click. I'm going to offset this curve. So curve, offset curve, this curve here at a distance of 1. So I'll type in 1 and press enter, and I can choose the side to offset. I'm going to offset to this side and click. So there we go. This will be the inside and the outside thickness or surfaces of our head. Rename a couple more layers, inner head and outer head. And go into the inner, and we're going to do a revolve. So surface revolve, select this curve here and right click, 0 and enter to start. Hold shift and click. And then we'll choose full circle. So now you can see we've created a surface. There it is here. I'm going to repeat this on this curve here. So I'm going to go to the outer head, surface, revolve, select this curve, right click, 0, enter, hold shift and click, and choose full circle. So now we got a couple surfaces. I'm going to turn off some layers. So now we just have the outer surface. I want to unwrap this to draw some curves flat to wrap them back up on. First thing to do is check the directions of this surface. So under Analyze is Direction. We'll select this object and right click. And we want to make sure we get the outside pointing out. If we need to flip that, we could flip it. And we can see the U going to the right and the V curve going up, the red and green arrows. So they're lined up with the grid here. So we're all set there. So everything's good. So we'll right click. If you had to, you could use those options for the reversing and swapping to fix that. I'm going to create the unwrap. So curve, curve from objects, create UV curves, select the surface. It prompts me for curves on the surface. There are none that I want to unwrap, so I'll just right click. And here we have our rectangle. This is the bounding area of the surface. I'm going to change this onto the green layer by selecting it and change object layer. We're going to rename this UV curves. Jump into my top view. We're going to make a head with 6 prongs, so I'm going to draw some points in order to make this all equally distributed. So we're going to draw a single line from end to end. Let me set my UV curves as the current layer. There we go, now we're on green. Now we have a single line here. I'm going to divide this line using the divide by number of segments. And we're going to use 6, enter. So now there's 6 points. Go to curve, arc, and start end direction. And with your point snap on, snap to both these points for the start and the end, and the direction of the arc just comes straight down holding shift and click. There's an arc. We want to do some adjusting to this arc, so I'm going to scale 1D this arc. Origin point is in the middle here. Hold shift, click, bring this back in. Try and make this around 0.5 millimeter because this is going to be the thickness of our prong. So there's about 0.5. And I'm going to repeat the command by right clicking, and my origin is going to be up top this time. And I'm going to scale down. Make sure you don't come too close to the bottom. Leave yourself some room for thickness in the part, and click. I'm now going to offset this curve. So curve, offset curve. This curve here, I'm going to offset a distance. You can do 1.25, enter. Seems to be a little short. Let's try a little longer, 1.4. Almost there. One last time, 1.5. Close enough. Make sure you stay inside the box here. And there we go, we have our offset. I'm going to take both these curves and create some copies by going to transform copy. I'm going to snap to this point here as the point to copy from. Just continue snapping along, making copies. Make one extra outside. I'm going to repeat this to copy one on the left here. Point to point. Now these two, I really don't need on the outside. I'm just going to delete them. The remainder of all these curves, we're going to use the trim command. So start the trim command and trim off the excess here. Click. And now we can join this up. Joined into one open curve. I want to get rid of the sharp point on here, make a nice little fillet. So I'm going to use the fillet corners and use a radius of 0.3. Enter. Now these are nice and rounded. And we can do a final trim on these two excess pieces. Now if you've been very careful and done everything right, everything will line up nicely because this point here should line up with the opposite side here. When you go to wrap this, we can measure the distance to make sure. 1.663. I'll repeat that. 1.663. If you get two different distances here and here, that means you've shifted something or skewed something along the way, and you're going to need to correct it. So we've got our curves all drawn out, and you'll be ready in the next lesson for our surfacing.